Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan, along with our guys, Phil Brylow, of course, and Dwight Albrecht, the Spare Time Pro Shop in New Berlin. You can follow Dwight online at Dewey300. Follow Phil at Brew City Bowling. You can follow me from 1250 AM, The Fan, at Sparky Radio. Got to talk about the USBC Masters. So not 3 days of bowling on TV this week, like Tournament of Champions. You only get 2 days of bowling. You get one round on Friday to figure out what two bowlers we're going to advance to Sunday for the Fox finals. Phil, did we like this formatic setup for TV and how this whole thing played out?
Yeah, I like the way it worked out. They explained it to a point about the contenders bracket. I thought they could have gotten a little bit more in depth in it, that the guys that were there already had one loss in the tournament, but it is what it is, time constraints stuff. You could tell that they didn't have a lot of time between the last round of competition on Friday and the TV show because a lot of the graphics weren't built, a lot of things, it's stuff that guys like me notice. The average fan doesn't notice stuff like that.
I didn't notice any of that.
Right.
No.
So the intro packages weren't there. It was just the guys were standing around. Sometimes like, do I bowl? Do I wait for Mike J to introduce me? There's a little confusion on that, but both shows are quality shows, and I like the format. I like the way they do it, and I like the fact that Simonson would have had a second chance.
This to me is interesting. So I'm trying to figure out if I liked it or not, or if it was confusing or not, the way it was set up. Because obviously it was set up like an NCAA bracket, right? So you had like a field of 64. So when they show you on the bracket on TV, you're like 41 versus 49 or whatever the hell it was. Some high numbers. You're like, what the hell is going on? And then you're like, oh yeah. Okay, let's remember what we're talking about here. But it was weird that you went from one match and then that dude sat down. Then you went to the next match. Sherman, when he sat down, watched another match, and then Sherman had to come back essentially again. That was different to me. I don't know if the bowlers liked it or not, but it was different as a fan kind of following that way.
Well, Randy kind of explained it that if you lose your first match during the week, you are going to be bowling a lot of games. It's like like you're in jail for quite a while. Kind of working your way out.
You got to battle your way out, yeah.
I related with it when I tried the Super Hoinky one year in 1986. It was a big mega buck tournament in Ohio.
What was the name of it?
The Super Hoinky.
Can we find the person that came up with that name?
Well, it was the Hoinky family in Cincinnati. So
Hoinky?
Hoinky, yeah.
Could you imagine growing up with that name the rest of your life? Holy crap.
Well, it was a big bowling alley.
Hoinky?
A Western Bowl in Cincinnati.
Yep.
Hoinky.
Yeah. So it's $500 entry. I think $250,000 for first place. And I bowled a good game and lost, and I was then in the losers bracket. And so it was something similar to what this was. But I also love the building that they're in, Thunder Bowl, or they call it T-Bowl. I love that studio. And then I also was impressed right away that they put new lanes in, and you could definitely see better pin carry and better ball reaction because those old lanes were so old.
Yeah, it's a neat place to bowl. I was lucky enough to bowl there once about 25 years ago in the Arena Bay at Thunder Bowl, and it's just it's one of those things that every bowling fan should visit. Like we have Holler House here in Milwaukee. If you're near Detroit, you really got to check out the arena at Thunder Bowl. It's sad that they don't get more into the history of why Thunder Bowl was built with the National Bowling League back in the early 60s.
Why is it called Thunder Bowl?
I don't know why it's called Thunder Bowl.
Back to the history. See, that's what I'm talking
about.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you remember the name of I don't think the Detroit team was the Thunderbirds back. Maybe it was back in the National Bowling League. But they had it built where they could fit a couple thousand fans to watch bowling in there. Back in the day.
From Ford with the Thunderbird. Ford. Who knows?
So, but the National
Detroit.
There's so few records left.
If it's the Thunderdome, then I was thinking it was like the pins, right? Thunder. Like you ever hear, did your parents ever say when you hear thunder, it's the angels bowling or whatever it was?
My dad bowling up in heaven.
My mom always used to tell me that, those are the angels bowling up in heaven or whatever. Whenever you'd hear thunder.
Hear it all the time.
God knows we've had enough severe weather in this country. A lot of bowling happening. So, I mean, that could be part of the Thunderdome thing, maybe. I don't know. We're just guessing. But again, Oinky.
Here, I have a quick question.
I'm so happy my last name is Oinky.
How many people does that studio hold?
Now you could still easily fit 500 or 600 people in there if you put chairs down the lanes on the side on both sides and that kind of thing. You could easily fit 500 or 600 people still in there.
That's
easy.
A lot of people.
So and that's what the tiered seating all the way up the back and that type of thing. So they really don't use it I don't think they use it much in the way of leagues during Thunder Bowls. They use it a lot for a lot of special events and that type of thing as well because they can rent it out for a premium.
How many lanes are on the other side?
There's 90 lanes in the whole place.
So you've got to set up. You've got to set up similar to Bowling Heaven in Portland, Maine.
A little bit. You've got the arena bay, then you got the main bay where they have the qualifying and match play take place.
So they could do similar stuff to what he does out there then.
They could.
To make the special draft nights and all of that. Like you could do a lot of the similar features. You don't have anything like that around here.
Yeah.
We don't have any bowling alleys in Milwaukee area that have stadium seating and all that stuff.
No, the closest is the old JB's on 41 where they have like 10 lanes walled off for special events, that type of thing. And the dark brown lanes and everything. Yeah. It looks really neat, but they've never used it for anything other than, private parties, that type of thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but not stadium seating or any of that other stuff.
Nothing like that at all.
Okay, so that was the TV formatics, the whole deal. Were we wanting another guy in the booth for the Masters? Like we had Norm Duke, right? That was there in between matches or whatever else talking. And then we had Norm Duke in the booth as well during the championship match. Is that something we want for the major tournaments? Do we want another guy in there like a Marshall Holman in there during a major?
I would have rather seen Rob Stone, but I know obviously he's got
that is what it is. Yeah,
a lot going on. Dave Bryan did okay, but he's not Rob Stone, and so Dave Bryan likes to give everyone initials. So it was KP and RP, and that's his call. And 60 feet to success, that's his call. I get that all. But no one, in my opinion, can touch Rob Stone.
Well, agreed.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, did we want another voice in there? Do we like 3 voices for majors? Is that something you want to go down that avenue of with a major? These are our 3 guys that are going to be in the booth during, like Pete Weber.
I think for Friday night, it would have been good just on the basis of you got these guys trying to get through the contenders bracket, and somebody could add a little more on, especially if it was a player that had been in the contenders bracket earlier in the week, with the extra pressure, everything else that's going on. On Sunday, I think the 2 were fine. I think 2 people in the booth, you try getting that third when you're trying to get that major field. I think that could have been a little too much depending on who it was.
I think Barnes is really good at it.
I'm glad they're using Chris Barnes for that Holler House thing coming up this weekend.
Barnes, I think, would have been really good as far as, being that third guy in the booth and telling everybody what the conditions were like during the week and so forth and what these guys are dealing with. I think he just adds a lot when he's on there from a description standpoint.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, I've been lucky enough to work with Chris on live streaming stuff before, and it's just the amount of knowledge he has. Yes. If you ever wrote in a book and sold it to guys on tour, he'd make a ton of money. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's just a matter of, and he's kind of transitioning, I think, to that part of his career. He bowled a regional in Carpentersville last weekend that I live streamed for the PBA, and had a chance to talk to Chris a little bit. And he's starting to transition out of the being on the kids tour kind of thing. And I think one of the things he'd love to do, and he used to do more of it, especially with the USBC events, was be that voice in the booth. But now USBC doesn't have really much anything on TV anymore, and they're not using it for live streaming with the Bowl TV. So yeah, I'd love to see more Chris Barnes on the stuff like that, especially if there's an event. Let's say something happens and Randy can't be there.
Right.
I hope Barnes is the guy in the booth.
Yeah, no doubt. And you said he's coming in for Holler House?
He's coming in for Holler House. Him and Mike J are going to be on the call. I know Rob Stone is extremely heartbroken that he's not here for it.
Yeah, how is that not happening? You must have prior commitments.
He's got prior commitments. So it'll be Mike Jakubowski and Chris Barnes on the call. They've worked together plenty of times before. They have great chemistry. It's going to be a fun live stream this Saturday. PBA YouTube page, 4:00 from Holler House.
My daughter and I will be there for that. But I got to tell you real quick, I was pretty excited when Randy Peterson started talking about the pattern. Maybe they are listening to our show.
Oh, stop. Get out of here.
But he goes and says, he starts talking about the pattern, and Nick Hogan set up the pattern, and he goes, there's a lot of oil out there, 28 mils of oil. And I'm like, yes!
that is something we can get into as well. We talk about what is going on here. So let's talk about this whole deal with the Friday night scores, right? So Kyle Sherman against Tom Smallwood. Yeah. And I think the one miss, unless I missed it. So if I missed it, tell me if I missed it. They never really referenced the TV show when he was bowling, did they? The TV show that he did?
No,
I don't think they ever really did. See, for me, it would be every time this dude's on TV, we're going to reference that he had as a show.
You're talking Tom Smallwood. Oh, yeah, they talked about it.
Yeah, they did bring up the show.
Not a lot, but they did talk about it briefly.
I clearly missed it there because I was waiting for it, but I got a baby and
because
running
it's
all
his
over.
hometown.
Right. Yeah. So okay, so you had Smallwood, you had Sherman. In Smallwood, I don't know, just getting tapped a lot.
Well,
right. I mean,
there's a point here, though.
Okay.
He's recently changed to 14-pound equipment, and I kept saying during the show to my wife, I'm just like, he left a lot of 9 pins out there. Could have been that pound later. I mean, I get why he's trying to use it, but when I tried 14 after my shoulder surgery, I noticed a huge difference in my carry between 14 and getting back to 15.
But an advantage one way is a disadvantage another. If he gets high in the pocket, he might trip up more 4 pins and that type of thing. So wait a second. Know what you got in your hand.
Dwight, Phil, I don't think I've ever asked either one of you this. We've talked about it, but we have never got a firm opinion, I don't think, on either one of you. Dwight, we're going to start with you because you're the bowling pro shop operator.
Yep.
Are you anti-14?
I'm not anti-14.
And I'm not saying anti-14 for like a 12-year-old. I'm saying anti-14 for a PBA bowler. Yeah.
Well, I'll answer it this way. In 1992, I remember it was a couple of years. I was just at B&G. I started my new career at B&G, and USBC sent out a 2-page pamphlet that they did with the ramp over at USBC, and they tested weight of a bowling ball versus leaving a 10-pin. Oh. And the chart showed that the 16 and 15 were pretty close, but then there was a significant drop down to 14, and then it went lower, and once it went to 13, 12, 10, and 11. But that was also pre-resin.
Oh. And that also doesn't change the ball speed at all, because the 6 coming off the sideboard into the 10, that's not generated from revs only. That's generated from the speed of the bowling ball as well. So somebody that's throwing at 20, 22 miles an hour is going to get more kick 6s into the 10 than somebody that's throwing at 15 miles an hour. So they didn't take that into consideration with that study back then. If a bowler can amp it up a couple miles an hour faster, they're going to kick out more corners. Yeah.
But I'm a numbers guy, and I always look at the stats and the numbers, and that's what I go off of to answer your question. So I'm not anti-14, but I do feel that there's a huge difference in carry between 14 and 15.
So if you're a ball rep, Phil, and he's going through what he's going through, what are you saying?
Well, prime example of it, Sean Rash. He's been using 14 because of his back all year. He gets done with round 1, feels really good, and his ball rep goes, let's go to 15. Yep. And he used 15 the rest of the week. Bill O'Neill, I saw a tweet from Bill O'Neill during the Masters week where he said RIP 14 pounds. It's been a good run, but he's going back to 15. So bowlers, sometimes it's just they're looking for that different feel. It maybe just makes them feel a little sharper on what they're doing. Like, hey, I got this, and all of a sudden something clicks, and like, hey, let's go with this for a while. I know I had that first when I dropped from 16 to 15. All of a sudden, for like 3 weeks, nobody could stop me. All of a sudden, 3 weeks later, all of a sudden, like, yeah, I guess it's just everything feels like it used to. So
how the body adjusts for it.
Right, exactly. It's just one of those. It's just one of those weird things where guys are looking for grip changes and all the other stuff. It's all the combination of everything where they're just trying to find that magic combination that puts them on fire for that week.
That it's going to be interesting because we didn't have this 14-pound conversation 3 years ago, 4 years ago. There was nobody talking about 14 pounds. No. So where did this whole conversation start at? Like, who was the trendsetter that said, okay, I'm going to go to 14, and these other guys are all like, no doubt. All right, I'll give that a shot too. Because it had to start somewhere. Like, there had to be somebody. Do we know the answer to this? Because it just popped up.
My head.
Yeah, a ball rep either had to come up with this, or a manufacturer, a PBA bowler. Yeah. Somebody came up with this idea. It worked, and then because it's copycat, right? I mean, any sport is a copycat league. If somebody's having success, we try to copy whatever that team is doing so we can have success.
I just don't know if you're seeing any PBA players that are having huge success throwing 14. I would think that it would be, if anything, status quo, or they're getting by. But I haven't seen anyone break out throwing 14, winning a title with it. Until that happens, then I'm still staying with my statistical numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent, drop to 14 that I saw was Bill O'Neill, and I know that Beef and Barnsley, their podcast. I mean, when you got Chris Barnes out there, he's got all the info you need. I didn't get a chance to see that one, but the title of the podcast is 14 the new 15. So there's guys out there that have been using it, that switched to it. We'll see if they go back or not.
Be interesting. We should get Chris Barnes on. I think Barnes would be good to have on to talk about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, very smart man. You and him can nerd out together. Dwight. Okay. Let's talk about this. So Kyle Sherman defeats Tom Small with 279 to 209. Listen, Kyle Sherman was just locked in. I mean, let's just not. I mean, nothing much Smallwood could do. Yes, he was kind of getting tapped left and right, but it is what it is. Then it's Sean Rash versus Parker Bohn III. Thoughts on Parker Bohn III, Dwight?
Yeah, my only thought was, what the heck was his tour rep thinking using that ball or having him play that line? I mean, he had no miss area. I mean, he had to be absolutely dead letter perfect. Then I started to think, after watching Michael Martell, that Parker just simply did not have enough revs to compete with that volume of oil that's out there. But boy, I would have given Parker quite a few different balls to choose from. And for me to sit home and watch, that's the best you could do for him. I mean, that match was lost before he even started. If that was his ball reaction in practice, no doubt about it. Obviously, Randy made a real good point that you don't want to get it to the dry outsides too early. That's the outsides are so bone dry.
Right.
But he had nothing for a look.
I don't
whatsoever.
know. Yeah, I don't know if it was just, hey, this could be my last chance kind of thing. I mean, Parker had not bowled well on the few tour stops he hit all year long. Like, he's not on the World Series of Bowling roster. Parker's going to be here at all. Wow. Parker's going to be here, but he's going to be the ball repping for the lefties under the Brunswick brands.
Oh, so
they're bringing him in for that because he hadn't been sharp, and he took advantage of the format. He got through 15 games of qualifying, and after that, it's just 3-game matches. If you catch the right guy, right time, you have the right ball in your hand, and you make your spares, and you can keep going through the bracket. And Parker proved it, where he just kept plugging along through the contenders bracket after an early loss, and next thing you know, he's making the TV show while the family's watching. He didn't look as fluid as we've seen past Parker, whether that's 59 years old, whether it was probably, if we asked him, I bet you it'd be a bit of the nerves. When am I ever going to be able to do this again on TV? That could have something to do with it too.
I think nerves are created when you don't have good ball reaction. If you have a good ball reaction, I think the nerves go away real fast.
Yeah. I think getting down the match early doesn't help matters any either.
But I mean, the second frame,
right.
Second frame for Parker, he leaves that washout. I'm just like, oh God, he's in trouble. I mean, again, you can dictate who's going to win or lose by the first few frames just by ball reaction.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's Dwight Albrecht. Again, follow him on Twitter at Dewey300. Follow Phil at Bruce City Bowling. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Download the Spare Time Bowling Podcast wherever you download your favorite podcast. Also, we are now putting these episodes up on YouTube as well. A couple days after they load for the audio version of them, you can find them on YouTube on the Odyssey AUDACY sports page. You can download the Spare Time Bowling Show there. Let's talk about my good buddy Sean Rash. Okay, so a couple of things. One, Rash isn't the Sean Rash that obviously Sean Rash was back when we were doing the show the last time, right? He's had a couple of bad years. He's had physical ailments and so forth that he's been going through. So not same type of guy. Okay. First, let me say this. It's good for the sport if he's on TV. Yeah. Even now, even though he's not on TV as much, he's still one of the more entertaining guys you're going to see on TV. The one thing I was happy with, and I was literally in my living room going, all right, Sean, good. You've grown up a little bit. This is good. Where he literally had the ball in his hand and then put it down and said, oh, I got to calm down a little bit. Right. And then he came back and picked up the ball and then went on. So I was like, okay, that's good. Old Sean probably wouldn't have done that. Old Sean would have just said, to hell with it. I'm just going to throw this out, whatever. And he wouldn't have taken that break. So that was good, Sean. I was like, okay, this is good. Same old Sean. Every little damn thing irritates this dude. Like, it's never going to change.
Right.
And the flashing light, yes. Okay, fine. I get down with you. And then he was complaining about the scoreboard or some nonsense. I don't know.
On the screen,
nobody else was saying anything. They were all bowling under the same conditions. And this dude just would not let it go. That type of stuff. It just goes back to what I've always talked about with him. Like, the mental side for him is his biggest opponent. Physically, he's a beast. Like, that dude can bowl anybody.
God bless Chuck Garner.
Yes, God bless Chuck Garner. You're right. But the biggest issue with Sean is his head. And it's not good. I don't think it's going to change. Like, he is who he is as a human being, right? And mentally, I think he just gets wound so tight and lets everything get to him and get in his brain. He can't get out of his own way half the time in his head. And that really just screws him up.
Yeah.
And again, he's not the only one that bowls that has issues with the mental side of the game. Golfers have issues with the mental side of the game. Yeah. Cornerbacks, pitchers. There's all kinds of athletes that have that issue where they're really, really good. But mentally, that's the struggle a little bit if something goes wrong or something goes bad, and then they have a hard time getting over the hump to get past that.
Well, he's not Mount Rasuvius like he used to be, where the littlest thing you just get the gigantic crater explosion.
Hey, okay, fine. You could say that.
Yeah.
But when he won that match, that dude was jacked.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about Sunday, here I come, watch out, boys. And all of that tension and all that work that he's been putting in because he hasn't been healthy. This is really the first major he's really had a chance at. Just all came out kind of like I'm effing back. You better believe it. Here I come. Right. And I was happy for Sean. Like, was like, all right, cool, man. Like, let it go.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I can tell that's what it is. And I was texting with a buddy, and my buddy's like, man, say what you want about Sean, man, but he's bowling. I said, it's not Sunday. Let's see what happens on Sunday.
He could have done without the old GD comment at the beginning.
That is what it is.
It is what it is, you know. And so instantly when that happens, I go to social media to see what people say. And I read a lot of diaper rash comments again, and maturity.
But again, he's good for TV because he's getting those reactions. What reactions did Kyle Sherman get when he was bowling other than snoring? That's it. That's all it was. He was one of the most boring dudes ever to watch on TV. Not YouTube. I'm saying on TV.
Right. That's why Rash said on Sunday, the haters on social media.
Yes, but that's good for the sport.
Right. I get it.
Like, we shouldn't be getting all worked up about, people don't like Sean. Well, fine. But they don't have really the bad guy in bowling necessarily. Not that he's a bad guy. He's not a bad dude. Right. But people like rooting against him because of all his crazy antics.
I think he's just, like you always say, he's just trying too hard to be the bad guy. It's not comes naturally.
I don't think he's trying to be the bad guy. That's just who he is. Like, he's very emotional. He wears his emotions on his sleeves and that whole deal.
The daughter and I were in the crowd for the doubles event last year at Brylow, and Tom's standing right next to me talking, and I kept watching Sean, and it was like he was trying to run and produce the show. He was in Clark's ear every 2 seconds about something
going on for years.
Well, no different than the big screen in the arena this time around. Hey, stop flipping that thing around, and
he's been doing that for years. Dwight. That's nothing new. That he has been a good decade. That's been happening.
There's a reason why Sean shows up with a wad of $100 bills in his pocket when he makes a TV show. Because either it's going to be a balk call, and it's going to cost him $100 for going over the shot clock, or he's going to say something. There was a minor F-bomb drop during the show as well, so I'm sure that had to peel a few of those hundreds off of there. There's a reason why, but Sean knows it, and he comes prepared. It's just kind of funny.
It is what it is. But either way, nice to see him back on TV. It's good for the sport. The more he's on TV, the better it is for the sport. So he beats Parker Bohn, not close, 264-169. Then Sherman versus Chris Vi. And I just say, I felt so bad for Kyle Sherman, the way that whole end of that game ended. Because I was thinking to myself, oh my God, you shot 270 on that first game. This game hasn't gone well, but you had this game in hand. Like, this game was pretty much done, and it got blown away. So now this dude gets back, and then the roll-off format, which never really been a fan of. High score wins on roll. I'm like, he's going to lose on a damn single ball roll-off, and then they both throw strikes, and then they get to the next shot. And then he wins and advances and gets to TV. But I felt bad for Kyle Sherman the way that whole thing played out, Phil.
Well, it just goes to show how quick these lanes transition. There's supposed to, a lot of oil on that. You could just tell that the fronts were going away a little bit on the righties. And all of a sudden the fronts changed a little bit. All of a sudden your ball's not tipping as hard.
And the lanes were completely different.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you switch balls to a ball that tips harder, and it really takes off in the back end.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things where if you're not on your toes, you can have a 50-pin lead and it goes away. And Chris Vi found that out the hard way. As the match went on, all of a sudden Sherman finds something. Vi can't get his carry going, and we got a tie, ladies and gentlemen. You know?
I felt sorry for Chris Vi's mom. She was dying on every shot Chris Vi was throwing.
That could be the first ball qualifying, and Andrew Vi would be doing that. I mean, let's be honest.
Right. But I feel sorry for Chris Vi leaving that cold 9-pin.
He did.
We wouldn't even have this conversation.
That was a good ball.
Right. And he strikes on that shot. One question I do have for Phil, because he's on the inside scoop. Why did they use the two lanes that they did? To eliminate the ball return?
Because of the screen above the lanes.
To center it.
And then also, if you looked at the camera angles where the cameras get set up, the best angles in there are for using those two particular lanes. So it was all because of the TV stuff.
Yeah, I put in my notes. I was going to ask you guys what you thought about that back fourth thing, because the match versus Simonson and Michael Martell, you could see Simonson was in Martell's way. He wanted to get to his ball quick and pick it up.
Oh well,
it is what it is.
I know. I'm just. Observations I've made.
No. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if somebody complains to me and I'm Tom Clark, I'm like, get away. Go away. Go have a sandwich. Like, don't complain to me about this. I'm not dealing with this. Like, that type of minor stuff. If that's bothering you, you've got bigger issues.
Right. Years ago at the Masters in 2015 in Green Bay, Pete Weber, have him stop touching my towel or my chamois, and you're done, Pete. Sorry.
It's it. But when you have that little type of stuff in your head, you're toast. I mean, we're talking about Rash. Like I said, he's not the only one. That mental side is such a huge thing, man. And this is the other thing I would say, and people don't really do it, but I'm telling you, I guarantee you, there are dudes on this tour that if there was somebody that talked constantly, would screw up half these guys. Guaranteed. If there was somebody just walking back, just chirping at the other guy, that's the devil. No chance you're doing that. And just chirp. There'd probably be guys wanting to fight the dude.
Oh, yeah.
But there's no way they'd be beating the dude because most of these guys mentally couldn't handle it.
That's the impression I got from what I don't know if his first name Knowles, the lefty.
Justin Knowles.
During the U.S. Open. I mean, there's a chirper right there.
But that's to me, the more you watch these guys and the more you get to know these guys, they're all not like Rash necessarily.
Yeah.
But the littlest things get in their head and bother them, and then it's shake, rattle, and roll. You know, the guys that. Who was it? We were talking about Norm Duke. Was it Norm Duke that was bowling for money back in the day, growing up, or whatever the case may be? Right. Now, you're not going to rattle him. He's been through that type of stuff. A lot of these guys have never been in those situations to bowl for money. I used to bowl for money when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, and the trash talking was constant, and either you knew how to deal with it or you didn't. And if you didn't, you were done. And that's kind of just what it was. And a lot of these guys, again, you know, they bowl in high school. There's not a lot of chirping in high school. College, I don't see a lot of chirping on TV when you watch college bowling necessarily. No. And then you go to the pros, and you're never in that situation where there's a lot of that trash talking going on.
But with Simonson, I mean, he grew up. There's still a lot of action going on in Texas, Oklahoma, that type of thing. If you want to find it, you can find it. And Simonson, as a young kid, started growing up with that.
That's good.
I think that's part of his mental toughness.
Correct. Yes, no doubt about it. All right, so then we get so Sherman advances to Sunday. Then it's Sean Rash against Patrick Dombrowski. I never heard of Patrick Dombrowski, y'all. I don't know who he is. I ain't never heard of him. He's Polish because it ends in ski, and I know he's Polish, right? I'm Polish, so I can get along with that. He's old, got a lot of gray hair like me, so okay. I was like, I wonder how good this dude's going to be, right? Because you got really Sean Rash, and will he be intimidated? Hell no, he wasn't intimidated. No. That dude, to me, he outbowled Sean in that match. He threw better first balls that whole damn match than Sean did, without question. And he just, got tapped out.
He made many shows and that's why I remember him.
God, he's good. He was so good in that show.
He's
what a physical game.
He's probably one of the best 5 weekend warrior guys out there.
There we go.
The guys that are the
regionals.
The regionals of that. Easily best 5. Won the RPI in Vegas back in January.
Yep.
Got through that. Once again, a match play format.
Right.
He's tough in match play.
Randy made the comment, what if this guy was full time on the tour?
Yeah, but he's not. Right, he's only bowling 3 or 4,
right?
Something like that.
Bowls when he can, how he can, and whenever he shows up, he's a threat to make a show. I'd put money on him if he showed up at a national event.
I was really impressed. He was out there. I was like, oh damn, this dude's for real.
He's like a BJ Moore. It's the same thing. BJ's got a business back home with his wife and everything, and he gets out there when he can. And when he shows up, you better pay attention to him because he's probably gonna put a stomping on you if you don't pay attention.
Really?
That's that's another one too with BJ Moore.
So Patrick Dombrowski, that was impressive. Rash beats him 256, 237. But again, I think Dombrowski
definitely uphold
had better shots. It just luck, whatever you want to call it. Right. All right, so now you get to the championship round coming up on Sunday. And we just literally were talking about Michael Martell, weren't we? On a podcast recently. And Martell ends up making this show, the USBC Masters, as the 2 seed. So you knew you were going to get to see Martell on TV. And again, $100,000 to first place, 50 G's to second place, 25 to third, 15,000 to fourth place. $100,000, man. That's what some people make in a year, right? That's more than a lot of people make in a year. So that's a lot of money to win one tournament going forward from there. So now you get the Kyle Sherman gets to go get on TV. Here comes good old Sean Rash gets to get on TV. And now the lights are on Sunday. And I'm sitting here going, okay. And Phil and I were texting. I'm sorry, Dwight, by the way. I'm so sorry. That. So poor Dwight is working at the shop
all day Sunday getting caught up.
Is working. We have a group text between us
29 text messages.
Right. And Phil and I should have been doing our own text messaging and kept Dwight out because Dwight wasn't watching.
I didn't read
any of them.
I didn't read any of them.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I felt that after I'm like,
I figured you guys were watching the show. I don't want you guys to spoil it for me.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh, we should not be doing this. We're screwing it all up for Dwight at the end of the day. But yeah, so anyway, so the first match 1, Kyle Sherman defeats Sean Rash 258 to 199. And as I told you, or Kyle Sherman defeats Sean Rash 258 to 199. I don't know. I mean, what would you attribute the Sean Rash loss to in that one? I mean, Sherman was clearly bowling better than him, and he was mixing stuff up. Still, Rash was, but he just wasn't having as much fun, as much carry.
Did not have as good a ball reaction again as he did Friday night. Yeah, simple as that. He tried 2 different balls, a DNA on one lane, forget the reality check on the other, but didn't have the look that he. And it's amazing how you can lose the lane that quick from Friday night to Sunday. Well, and they're oiling them exactly the same.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean squat temperature difference, how long the lane's been. I mean, there's so many factors that go into that. And you looked at Sean's strike tracks every time they showed it. Wasn't consistent on that either. He smashes a 7. He pulls it 3 boards left and somehow still smashes a 7. Sean didn't throw as good as shots as Kyle did, and it proved it once the final score hit.
Yeah, Sean was the king of mix, is what he was, and that's how he got through Friday night.
Yes, he did.
Right.
And it just wasn't enough to carry him through, and Sherman was there. Now, this is the last time we talked. We talked about how you can go from one match to the next and completely just lose it.
Yes,
and that's pretty much what happened to Kyle Sherman. Kyle Sherman in match 2
kind of TOC.
He kind of just got lost, and Michael Martell wins that one 208 to 187. Martell. You could tell looking at him when it started, he was nervous. You could look at him and go, "Oh, this dude's a little worked up right now. Like, how is this going to go early?" And he really didn't throw bad shots per se. Like he was able to keep his composure. And by the time we got 2 or 3 frames in, you could see him kind of settle down a little bit and get into just bowling. Dwight.
He had the rev rate that Parker Bohn didn't have. I think Bohn's rev rate on TV was 360, 350, something right around there. And Martell
it's nice coming from the left side too.
Well, they're both lefties,
right? But in that show,
right,
he was the only guy coming from the left side.
You're correct,
right?
But Martell had 430 to 440 for RPM rate, and a little slower ball speed. And I thought to myself, "Well, see, there's the difference in why his ball's finishing and Parker's was not."
Well, Parker is also up the back of the ball a little bit more, whether it was just because moving out of the main bay into the arena bay, Parker changed his role a little bit too compared to what we saw in a lot of pairs on Bowl TV during qualifying and match play. Parker was a little bit more at the back of the ball, where Martell was a little more around the side of the ball. And I think the ball roll, the difference in ball roll helped Martell out as well.
I kept watching Martell's game, even though, a quick story, he practices a lot at New Berlin when he's in town, as he's dating one of the local girls. And they showed a quick photo of her, video of her, Maddie Brando's. And so
she a bowler too?
Oh yeah, she was in the studio.
Okay.
We had her in the studio.
We had her in the studio.
Top Gun, nice. Back in the day.
Nice. Right. And anyways, so they're dating. And so she was sitting next to Michael Martell's mom, but I've seen him practicing over at New Berlin. I went down and said hello and shook his hand last year, I believe it was. But I compared him when I was watching him on TV, and then Randy talking about his game. He has a very similar positions of his physical game to Jacob Buttroff, how they roll their wrist. My wife was watching and said he's double jointed, just because how he rolled his wrist. But when you watch how the ball comes from top of the backswing down, how his wrist rolls very similar to Jacob Buttroff.
Yeah, I don't think it's the full hyper flexibility.
I was going to say Buttroff makes me nauseous.
Right.
Yeah, makes me nauseous. Like I can't. I just physically hurt watching him throw a bowling ball. I didn't get that watching Martell necessarily, but again, very impressive by Martell.
Yeah.
Again, stayed within himself. Bowled well in that one. 208, 187. Now we get to the championship match, and I'm not going to sit here and hide it. I simply said there's no chance he's beating Simonson twice. Ain't no chance.
I think
I'm happy he's in the championship match. There's no chance he's beating this dude twice.
Right.
And he didn't even beat him once, obviously, because Simonson got locked in and it was over, and he wins 243 to 222. Wasn't like Martell bowled bad. Like Martell didn't go on into the championship match and shoot a $175 and just choke. That's not what happened. Simonson was just better.
One open.
Yeah, that was
one
it.
Opens the difference. That opened the middle of the game for Martell. And he just you could tell when he let that one go, he just had a little different rotation on the wrist, and just they call it grabbing it a little bit. It was that little different rotation, and it just snapped on the back end. And it just goes to show how those just small mistakes on these tough tour patterns and USBC Masters and US Open pattern, the smallest mistakes that you and I would feel like should strike in our league shots, leave splits for these guys. And I think sometimes that's just the part that the casual fan just doesn't get on TV. They're working to make it better with strike tracks. It's really easy to tell with strike tracks. But yeah, it was just
when we do our next podcast, because we're pretty much out of time, but when we do the next podcast, we talk about the greats of bowling, right? And where Belmonte is and so forth. We got to talk about where Anthony Simonson is going to be, because This dude's on a roll. And what is he, 26?
26.
And he's got 5 majors already.
Yep.
Back-to-back USBC
Yep.
Masters. Like, hey, man. I mean, I think did Randy Peterson say he might have 10 by the time he gets to 30 or something like that? I mean, that's really good. And we don't really ever talk about him at that level.
Well, week 2, we had the conversation in the studio here of who's the face of the PBA.
Right. It's not him.
Oh, my comment was it was going to be Anthony Simonson.
Yeah, you did say that. Right. It's
right.
Belmo till Belmo's done. Yeah. And then when Belmo's done, then we can revisit and maybe it will be Simonson at that point. Yeah. But it's Belmonte till Belmonte's done. That's just. That's
I really think he could give Belmo a run for all his titles and out.
Well, if he's going to be the face of the PBA, then they better figure out how to market him.
Well, he's got to figure out how to market him
because Belmonte did all of his own marketing and put himself in that position. So Simonson either has to figure out and get a marketing team with him or somebody that knows marketing with him to help promote him, or him and the PBA have got to figure out how to promote him, something in order to put him out in front.
Okay. I really was dying to ask you guys this since Sunday is what's the story behind the sunglasses and the dudes that gave him sunglasses? Sure. I thought it was hilarious.
No idea.
It was. He had to know those guys.
It was something different. Yeah. I had the sunglasses for him. Yeah, obviously friends.
That was great.
Right. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. But again, that's something that can be that thing that he plays into. If he's always going and grabbing sunglasses after championship wins or something,
that could be a story behind that somewhere. Right. Yeah. I thought Phil might have.
All right. He is Phil Brylow. Follow him on Twitter at Brew City Bowling. Dwight Albrecht, Spare Time Pro Shop in New Berlin at Dewey 300. And of course, you follow me at Sparky Radio. We're all here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the studios of 1250 AM The Fan, and the PBA hanging out at the Holler House here in Milwaukee coming up this week.
Saturday, 5 Eastern, 4 Central, the big match to kick off USA versus the world. Tommy Jones for the U.S., Jason Belmonte in a 1-game match to see. And it's important because it's who gets lane choice in order for every single match during the USA versus the world TV shows on the 15th and 16th.
And explain to everybody that's listening around the country, what exactly is the Holler House and what are they walking into besides the bras?
The building's 150 years old. The lanes are 110 plus years old.
It's in the basement, right?
2 stairs. Yeah. Yep. You got to walk down a bunch of stairs in the basement. There's a door 2 next lanes to the bar. You have to walk down 2 lanes over top ball returns. They oil it with a bug sprayer. I'm going to have to dodge. I'm going to be helping out with stuff. I'm going to have to dodge all kinds of stuff going on down there because there's no room. The walls are right along the lanes.
Right.
As Dwight said, pin boys. It's just if you want to go
warm up, are they allowed these 2 guys to have on these lanes?
I'm sure they'll probably get the usual 20 minutes or so. But with the modern bowling balls and oil with a bug sprayer, there's going to be nothing left.
I would love to hear the reaction for these.
Yeah, think of the pin boys when Tommy Jones throws a 10 pin and he flattens it out and throws it hard. I would be moving.
There's no doubt. So
I am not going to get beamed in the head by a bowling pin.
And they're going to have large screen outside and the whole deal out there in the Holler House. You can watch outside.
The tickets for watching from the bar area on closed circuit TV, those tickets sold out in like an hour.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. And then there's a big tent outside where people are going to be watching closed circuit TV. They're going to be able to buy drinks. I think they're going to have a food truck there.
That's awesome.
It's going to be as it always is at Holler House, it's going to be a big party while you're there.
Yeah. That's great.
I have stories I will never tell about.
And it's supposed to be beautiful on Saturday. It's supposed to be in the 50s. So
I will definitely be buying and wearing my Holler House t-shirt to one of these shows.
That's awesome. He is Dwight Albrecht, Phil Brylow, C. Sparky Fifer. Until next week, it has been the Spare Time Bowling Show. Don't forget, you can download this podcast or you download your favorite podcast. Also on YouTube now on the Odyssey, AUDACY Sports YouTube page. Have a good one.